The stars appeared unusual from the command deck of the Harmony's edge. Captain Jake Morrison had witnessed countless star systems during his 2 decades traveling through space. Yet this view felt different. These foreign suns marked where human territory ended and where something unknown began. Jake stood with clasped hands behind him, staring at the massive blue star illuminating the Zaharian home system. "Captain, their reply is coming through," Amy Watson announced from her station. The young officer, barely 25, still had that sense of amazement in her, expression about being so distant from Earth. "They've accepted our suggested meeting point." Jake gave a slight nod. 3 months of delicate communication had brought them to this moment. The Zephyrians appeared willing to meet humans, though their transmissions remained cautious and measured. Jake knew that initial meetings between species carried enormous risk. A single misstep could trigger conflict or destroy potential friendship before it started. "Dr. Grant, are you prepared?" Jake asked. Lisa Grant glanced up from reviewing her notes for what must have been the 100th time. She was Earth's finest diplomat, and Jake felt relieved to have her expertise. Lisa had devoted her entire career to understanding other civilizations and their ways of speaking. She had mastered 17 different extraterrestrial languages from the limited radio signals Earth had collected over the years. "As prepared as anyone can be when making history," she replied with a warm smile. The remaining crew stood ready at their posts. Pete Collins handled navigation, ensuring their vessel stayed precisely where the Zephyrians requested. Dan Parker monitored the engines, maintaining optimal system performance. Everyone understood the significance of this assignment. Earth had existed in cosmic isolation for generations. Discovering allies would transform everything. "There they are," Pete said, gesturing toward the primary display. The Zephyrian vessels were stunning. They resembled structures built from crystal and pure light, completely unlike the metal and composite materials of human spacecraft. 5 ships approached, each one dwarfing the Harmony's edge. Jake experienced a flash of concern. Why bring so many vessels to a peaceful gathering? He dismissed the worry. Perhaps this was simply their standard travel formation. "They're requesting we board their flagship," Amy reported. "They want to hold a ceremonial meal to mark first contact." Jake looked toward Lisa. She nodded her agreement. This was their purpose for coming. 2 hours passed before Jake and Lisa found themselves seated at a table made of something resembling green glass. The Zephyrian ship felt warm and welcoming inside, with walls that glowed from within. The atmosphere carried the scent of unfamiliar flowers. High Counselor Vexathera sat opposite them with 4 other Zetharian officials. Vexata stood tall and slim, with skin that shifted colors like oil, reflecting rainbow patterns. When he spoke, his voice carried a musical quality. "We welcome the humans," he said in flawless English. "Your kind has journeyed far to find us." Lisa opened her case, revealing data storage containing everything humanity wished to share. Medical breakthroughs that could eliminate diseases. Energy systems that could power entire worlds without harming the environment. Farming methods that could feed billions. "We offer these gifts as tokens of goodwill," Lisa explained. "Earth hopes to join the community among the stars as equals and companions." She withdrew a document printed on actual paper, something special for this historic occasion. "This represents our peace agreement. We're willing to share our knowledge, our innovations, and our friendship. We only ask that you help us learn about the galaxy and perhaps connect us with others who might welcome our friendship." Vextera accepted the document, but didn't examine it. Instead, he studied Lisa with eyes that seemed amused. "You would give away your technology freely? You would assist species you've never encountered? You would form agreements with beings you know nothing about?" "Yes," Lisa answered plainly. "That's what true companions do." The other Zephyrians began making sounds that Jake recognized as laughter, but not the pleasant kind. Vexthara rose, still gripping the peace agreement. "Your species lacks strength," he declared, and his melodious voice turned icy. "You offer help to adversaries. You seek partnerships with your lessers. You surrender your advantages for nothing. The galaxy cannot tolerate such foolishness." Jake began to stand, but armed Zaharian soldiers were already filling the room. Where had they been concealed? The crystal walls must have hidden them. "Wait," Jake protested. "We arrived peacefully. "We're not threatening you." "No," Vexthera replied. "You are not our adversaries. You are insignificant. You are fragile beings who mistake kindness for power and compassion for wisdom. The galaxy will improve once your softness stops infecting other species." Lisa stood slowly, keeping her hands visible and empty. "Please, let's discuss this. If we've caused offense somehow, we can resolve it. That's what communication is for." One soldier raised his weapon, something radiating purple energy. Jake moved to shield Lisa, but she stepped past him. "Wait," she said to the soldier. "You're injured." Jake looked and saw the soldier bleeding from a wound on his arm. Without hesitation, Lisa reached into her medical supplies and pulled out a healing patch. She approached the soldier with open hands, showing peaceful intent. "Lisa, don't," Jake warned. But she was already kneeling beside the soldier, attempting to apply the healing patch to his injury. The soldier appeared bewildered. Vexatha spoke in his native language, and the soldier withdrew from Lisa, but she persisted in trying to help him. "It's all right," she said softly. "This will stop the bleeding. I'm a physician. I just want to help." Vexathera made a disgusted sound. "You see, even now facing death, she attempts to heal her executioner. This is the weakness that must be purged from the galaxy." The soldier fired at Lisa while she was still trying to assist him. She collapsed to the floor, the healing patch still clutched in her hand. Jake rushed to her, but she was already gone. Her final act had been attempting to save the life of someone about to end hers. Jake felt something shatter inside his chest. He looked up at Vexathera with tears streaming down his face. "She was trying to help him," he said. "She died trying to save his life." "Exactly," Vexathera replied. "Your species chooses assistance over combat. You choose healing over harm. You choose trust over suspicion. These choices make you weak. The galaxy belongs to the powerful." Additional soldiers entered the room. Jake knew his time was ending, but he had one final task. He pressed the distress button on his communicator, the one that would transmit a message back to Earth. He had perhaps 10 seconds before they would silence him. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Harmony's Edge," he said into the device. "They're eliminating us all. Lisa died attempting to save an injured Zaharian soldier. They called us weak for showing compassion. They said the galaxy has no place for kindness. Earth, remember what they stole from us. Remember Lisa. Remember what they labeled as weakness. They're going to discover they were mistaken about humans. They're going to discover what we're truly like when someone kills our companions." The purple energy beam struck Jake before he could continue. The final image he saw was Lisa's face, peaceful even in death, still gripping the healing patch she had tried to use to save her killer. Outside, the Harmony's Edge exploded in a sphere of fire that illuminated the Zephyran ships like a new sun. But Jake's message was already racing through space, traveling toward Earth at light speed, carrying news that would transform everything. Admiral Rick Hayes was drinking his morning coffee when the universe shifted forever. He sat in his office at Titan Defense Station, reviewing routine patrol summaries when Lieutenant Commander Sarah Price knocked on his door. Her face was ashen. "Admiral, you need to see this transmission we just received from the Deep Space Relay," she said. Her voice trembled. Rick had served in the military for 30 years. He had reviewed battle reports, accident analyses, and disaster assessments. Nothing had ever made Sarah look like this. "Show me," he said. The hologram projector activated, and Jake Morrison's face materialized in the air above Rick's desk. Jake appeared older than Rick remembered, and his eyes brimmed with tears. The message played, and Rick felt his coffee mug slip from his grasp. It struck the floor and broke, but he barely registered it. "They called us weak for showing compassion," Jake's voice said. "Earth, remember what they stole from us." The message concluded, and Rick sat in silence for an extended time. Sarah remained by the door, waiting. Finally, Rick looked up at her. "How long ago did this occur?" "The transmission took 6 months to reach us through the relay network," Sarah explained. "Captain Morrison and Dr. Grant have been deceased for half a year." Rick rose slowly. His legs felt unsteady. "Get me President Sullivan. Get me the entire Defense Council. Get me everyone who matters. Do it immediately." 3 hours passed before Rick stood in the secure conference room deep inside the Pentagon. The most influential people on Earth sat around the table, all watching Jake Morrison's final transmission for the fourth time. President Kate Sullivan had tears in her eyes. General Tony Mitchell looked ready to strike the wall. Dr. Helen Adams was recording notes, but her hand shook. They murdered Lisa Grant while she was attempting to save their soldier's life, President Sullivan said quietly. They killed Jake Morrison while he was trying to send us this warning. They destroyed our ship and justified it. The Zephyrians have been broadcasting falsehoods about us, said Marcus Webb, the head of Earth's intelligence service. Our deep space monitoring posts have intercepted their communications. They're informing other extraterrestrial species that we tried to poison their officials during the peace talks. They're using our attempt at friendship as propaganda to turn the galaxy against us. General Mitchell slammed his hand on the table. They transformed our compassion into their weapon. They exploited our trust and used it to justify murder. Dr. Adams looked up from her notes. I've been analyzing their formal response to us, the official statement they sent after killing our people. They're not apologetic. They're proud. They believe they performed a service to the galaxy by removing what they call human weakness from space. President Sullivan remained quiet for an extended period. Everyone in the room waited. Finally, she spoke. Show me what we can do about this. Rick pressed a button and the wall screen illuminated. This is Project Cerberus, he said. We've been constructing these ships in secret for 20 years, hoping we'd never need them. The screen displayed ships that looked nothing like the Harmony's Edge. These were elongated and dark, covered in weapons built for one purpose only. Each Cerberus-class ship can destroy a planet, Rick continued. We have 12 of them concealed in the outer asteroid belt, fully crewed and ready to launch. We also have the Ghost Fleet, 30 AI-controlled ships that can fight without risking human lives. And we have something else. The screen changed to display a document marked with red letters, Omega Protocol. This is our plan for total war, Rick said. It was designed for the worst-case scenario when humanity faces complete extinction from an alien enemy. It calls for the complete destruction of the hostile species, the capture of their territory, and the elimination of any other species that supports them. Dr. Adams spoke up. The Omega Protocol isn't just about winning a conflict. It's about ensuring that no other species ever considers attacking humanity again. It's about teaching the galaxy that humans are not prey. President Sullivan looked around the table. Gentlemen, ladies, I need your perspectives. The Zephyrians killed our diplomats, destroyed our peace mission, and are now broadcasting lies about us to other species. What do? General Mitchell spoke first. We show them what human weakness really looks like. We show them what happens when you mistake kindness for softness. Dr. Adams nodded. Every analysis I've conducted reaches the same conclusion. The Zephyrians will not stop with killing our diplomats. They view us as a threat to their way of thinking. They will eventually come for Earth, and they'll bring allies. Marcus Webb opened a file. Our intelligence suggests that the Zephyrians are already negotiating with 4 other hostile species about forming an alliance against us. They're calling it the Purity Collective, dedicated to removing what they call weak species from the galaxy. Rick looked at the president. Ma'am, we have one advantage they don't know about. They think we're weak because we sent diplomats instead of soldiers. They have no idea what human soldiers are actually capable of. They've never seen our real military technology because we never had a reason to show it. President Sullivan remained quiet for another long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and cold. The Zephyrians wanted to see what human weakness looks like. They murdered our best people and called it strength. They took our compassion and called it foolishness. She looked around the table. Now they're going to learn what human strength actually looks like. And they're going to learn what happens when you kill our companions. She stood up. I'm authorizing the Omega Protocol. General Mitchell, prepare our forces. Admiral Hayes, ready the Cerberus fleet. Dr. Adams, I want psychological warfare programs that will break their will to fight. Marcus, I want intelligence on every Zephyrian world, every ship, every leader. What about the other alien species? Dr. Adams asked. The ones who haven't chosen sides yet? President Sullivan's smile was not pleasant. We're going to send them a message, too. When we're finished with the Zephyrians, every species in the galaxy will understand 2 things. First, humans make the best companions you can have. Second, humans make the worst adversaries you can imagine. The meeting ended and people began to leave. Rick stayed behind with the president. "Kate," he said quietly, "once we start this, there's no going back. The Zephyrians aren't the only ones who are going to view us differently. We're going to view ourselves differently, too." President Sullivan looked at Jake Morrison's frozen face on the wall screen. They killed Lisa while she was attempting to heal their soldier. They laughed at her compassion and called it weakness. "Rick, maybe it's time the galaxy learned what humans are really like when someone harms the people we care about." Outside the Pentagon, the largest military mobilization in human history began. Factories that had been dormant for decades roared back to life. Shipyards that had been constructing exploration vessels started building destroyers. Training camps that had been used for peacekeeping exercises became war colleges. But the most important change was happening in the hearts and minds of humanity. For the first time in their history, humans were truly angry. Not just at the Zephyrians, but at themselves for being so trusting. They had sent their best people to make companions, and those people had died for their kindness. The galaxy was about to learn that there is nothing more dangerous than a peaceful species that has been forced to become violent. The Zephyrians had awakened something in humanity that had been dormant since the ancient days when humans had to fight just to survive on Earth. They had killed Earth's Envoy. Now the destruction would begin. The Firstian system died on a Tuesday. Admiral Rick Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's largest warship. Around him, his crew worked in silent efficiency. These were not the same kind of people who had crewed the Harmony's edge. These were soldiers trained for conflict, ready for violence. They had volunteered for this assignment after witnessing what happened to Lisa Grant and Jake Morrison. "Target system in sight, Admiral," reported Captain Steve Johnson from his position at the tactical station. Steve commanded the stealth destroyer Silent Fury, one of 30 ships in Rick's attack fleet. His job was to go in first, gather intelligence, and clear the way for the main attack. Rick examined the star chart. Kepler 442 was a small system with one inhabited planet and a large military base on the third moon. Intelligence reports indicated 12,000 Zephyrians lived there, most of them soldiers. This base was where the Zephyrians coordinated their attacks on peaceful species who refused to join their Purity Collective. "Steve, take the Silent Fury and her escorts in first. I want to know everything about their defenses before we commit." "The main fleet," Rick ordered. "Yes, sir," Steve replied. His ship and 5 others disappeared into hyperspace, their stealth systems making them invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Rick waited. Waiting was the hardest part of conflict, especially when you were about to do something that would alter history forever. He thought about Lisa Grant, kneeling next to her killer, trying to heal his wounds with her last breath. He thought about Jake Morrison dying while trying to warn Earth about what humanity was really facing. "Admiral, we're receiving data from Captain Johnson," said Lieutenant Megan Kelly, the communications officer. "The Zephyrian base is heavily defended, but their technology is what we expected. Their shields can't stop our new weapons." Rick nodded. Human scientists had spent 6 months developing weapons specifically designed to counter Zephyrian defenses. They had studied every piece of alien technology they could find, looking for weaknesses. They had found many. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian base," Megan announced. "They're demanding to know who we are and what we want." "Put it on screen," Rick said. A Zephyrian face appeared on the main viewer. Rick recognized the species from the recordings Jake had sent. This one was younger than Vexra, with golden skin that shifted like liquid metal. "Unknown ships, you are trespassing in Zephyrian space. Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction." Rick stepped forward so the Zephyrian could see him clearly. "I am Admiral Rick Hayes of the Human Defense Fleet. You killed our diplomats. You murdered our peace envoys. You called us weak for showing compassion." The Zephyrian's skin changed to a darker color. What Rick had learned was a sign of confusion. "Humans, you are the weak species that tried to poison our High Counselor. Your diplomats were spies and saboteurs. We did the galaxy a service by destroying them." "No," Rick said calmly. "You made a mistake. You killed our companions and you called our kindness weakness. Now you're going to learn what human strength looks like." Rick turned to his weapons officer, Lieutenant Alex Turner. "Alex, target their military installations. Leave their communication center intact until the end. I want them to be able to call for help. I want other Zephyrians to know what's happening here. Target's locked, Admiral, Alex reported. Rick looked back at the Zephyrian on the screen. This is for Lisa Grant and Jake Morrison. This is for everyone who ever tried to make peace and died for it. The human fleet opened fire. Zahirian shields designed to stop energy weapons like their own simply melted under human plasma cannons. Their ships, built for speed and elegance, broke apart under human kinetic rounds that hit harder than asteroids. Their defense platforms, positioned to protect against conventional attacks, were useless against human stealth bombers that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Zephyrian base was gone. Their ships were destroyed. Their weapons were silent. Of the 12,000 aliens who had been living there, only a few hundred survived, and most of those were wounded. Rick had kept his promise. The communications center was still working. He opened a channel to the surviving Zephyrians. This is Admiral Hayes. I'm leaving one of your courier ships intact. Take your wounded and go back to your High Counselor. Tell Vexathara that humans remember our companions. Tell him that we're coming for every world, every ship, every trace of your civilization that participated in murdering our diplomats. A wounded Zephyrian appeared on screen. His golden skin was now pale with fear. Please, we surrender. We yield. Show us compassion. Rick was quiet for a long moment. Compassion. Lisa Grant showed you compassion. She died attempting to heal your soldiers' wounds. Jake Morrison showed you compassion. He came to you with gifts and friendship. You called that compassion weakness, and you killed them for it. Rick leaned forward. You want to see compassion? Here's human compassion. I'm letting some of you live so you can carry a message back to your leaders. I'm giving you one ship so you can escape. I'm not hunting down your wounded and killing them like animals. That's the compassion you rejected when you murdered our diplomats. The Zephyrian said something in his own language. Probably a prayer or a curse. Rick didn't care which. But understand this, Rick continued. This is the only compassion you'll get from us. We didn't start this conflict, but we're going to finish it. We came to you in peace, and you responded with violence. Now we're responding with war, and we're very good at war. Rick cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Ray, set course for the next target and send a message to all Zephyrian frequencies. Tell them that the humans they called weak are coming. Tell them that we remember our companions, and we remember our adversaries. The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind the burning remains of the first Zaharian system to fall. But they also left behind something else: fear. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians had encountered a species that could match their technology and exceed their ruthlessness. Captain Steve Johnson stood on the bridge of the Silent Fury as they traveled to their next target. His tactical officer, Rachel Stone, was reviewing the battle data. Sir, our new weapons perform better than expected. Zephyrian shields don't even slow down our plasma rounds. Steve nodded. That's good. But remember what Admiral Hayes said in the briefing. We're not just fighting a conflict. We're sending a message to every species in the galaxy. We're showing them what happens when you mistake human kindness for human weakness. Rachel looked at the star charts showing their next target. Sir, what if other species try to help the Zephyrians? What if they form an alliance against us? Steve smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized how much stronger he was than his prey. Rachel, let them try. The Zephyrians thought they were strong enough to kill our diplomats and justify it. They thought they were smart enough to turn our peace mission into their propaganda. They thought they understood what humans were capable of. He looked at the tactical display showing the positions of the remaining Zaharian fleets. They were wrong about everything, and any species that tries to help them is going to learn the same lesson they're learning. You don't kill human peacemakers and expect to live in peace afterward. The Silent Fury and her escorts dropped out of hyperspace near their second target, a Zaharian colony world with 8 million inhabitants. Steve opened a communication channel to the planet's government. This is Captain Steve Johnson of the Human Defense Fleet, he announced. 6 months ago, your species murdered our diplomats and justified it. You killed our companions and called it strength. Today, you're going to learn what justice and strength actually look like. The second Zephyrian system began to burn. High Counselor Vexathara had not slept in 3 days. His beautiful crystal palace on the Zephyrian homeworld was now a fortress surrounded by defense shields and orbital weapons platforms. Outside his window, he could see the fear in his people's golden faces as they watched the sky, waiting for human ships to appear. In just 2 months, the humans had destroyed 8 Zephyrian colonies. 40 million of his people were dead. 12 million more lived under human occupation, serving as slaves in their own cities. The mighty Zaharian fleet, once the terror of 4 sectors, had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in asteroid fields. "High Counselor," said his aide, her skin pale with exhaustion, "we have another surrender offer from the humans. Admiral Hayes is presenting the same terms as before." Vexathera took the message tablet with trembling hands. The human offer was simple and insulting. Complete surrender of all Zephyrian military forces. Acceptance of human occupation of all Zephyrian worlds. Submission to human authority in all matters. Trial of all Zephyrian leaders involved in killing the human diplomats. But there was one new addition that made Vexathera's skin burn with rage. The humans wanted him personally. They wanted him to stand trial for the murder of Lisa Grant and Jake Morrison. They wanted him to confess his crimes before the entire galaxy. "Send this message to the human fleet," Vexatha said, his musical voice now harsh with anger. "Tell them that the Zephyrian collective will never surrender to an inferior species. Tell them that we would rather die fighting than live as their slaves." His aide bowed and left. Vexathera turned back to his window, looking out at his capital city. Once it had been the most beautiful city in the galaxy, with towers of living crystal that sang in the wind. Now half the towers were dark, their songs silenced by fear. He activated his personal communicator. "General Thexfa, report on our defensive preparations." The general's face appeared in the air, his skin marked with the ritual scars of a warrior. "High Counselor, we have pulled back all our remaining fleets to defend the home system. 200 ships, our best warriors, our strongest weapons. If the humans want our world, they'll have to pay for it." "And our allies?" Vexathera asked. General Thexfa's skin darkened with shame. "The Corvani Republic has declared neutrality. The Helix Federation has closed their borders to us. The Crystalline Empire is negotiating a separate peace with the humans." Vexathera felt something cold settle in his chest. The Purity Collective, his grand alliance against weak species, had abandoned him. Every species that had agreed to help eliminate human weakness from the galaxy was now desperately trying to avoid human anger. "High Counselor," his aide returned, her voice shaking, "the humans have responded to your message." The communication screen came alive, and Admiral Hayes appeared. The human looked older than he had 2 months ago, his hair more gray, his eyes harder. Behind him, Vexathera could see the bridge of a massive warship larger than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. "High Counselor Vexathera," Hayes said, his voice calm and cold. "I received your message. You say you'd rather die fighting than surrender. I'm here to grant your wish." Hayes gestured to someone off-screen. "But first I want you to see something. This is footage from your colony world of Thex Prime, recorded yesterday." The screen changed to show a human soldier, a young woman with lieutenant's bars on her uniform. She was standing in what had once been the planetary governor's palace. Zephyrian civilians knelt in neat rows behind her, their hands bound, their skin gray with defeat. "I am Lieutenant Commander Sarah Price of the Human Colonial Administration," the woman said. "Thex Prime is now under human control. All Zephyrian military personnel have been disarmed and imprisoned. All civilian leaders have been replaced with human administrators. The planet's resources now serve human interests." She walked closer to the camera. "But here's what I want you to understand, High Counselor. We're not killing your people. We're not destroying your cities. We're not torturing your prisoners. We're doing exactly what you should have done when we came to you in peace. We're showing compassion to the defeated." Sarah Price looked directly into the camera, and Vexatha felt as if she were looking into his soul. "Dr. Lisa Grant died attempting to heal your soldiers' wounds. Captain Jake Morrison died trying to warn Earth about your treachery. They showed you what human compassion looks like. Now we're showing you what human justice looks like." The screen returned to Admiral Hayes. "High Counselor, you called our compassion weakness. You called our kindness foolishness. You murdered our companions and laughed about it. But here's what you never understood about humans. Our compassion doesn't come from weakness. It comes from strength. We show compassion because we choose to, not because we have to. Hayes leaned forward. And when someone kills our companions, when someone spits on our compassion and calls it weakness, we stop choosing to be compassionate. We become something else. We become what we were before we learned to be civilized. The transmission ended, and Vexathera stood alone in his crystal palace, surrounded by the silence of a dying civilization. Outside, air raid sirens began to wail. The human fleet had arrived. 3 hours later, General Tony Mitchell stood in the ruins of Vexathera's palace. The crystal towers lay shattered on the ground, their songs forever silenced. Zephyran soldiers knelt in the streets, their weapons piled in burning heaps. The great shields that had protected the capital city were nothing but twisted metal. "General, we found him," called Colonel Ben Torres, emerging from the wreckage of the palace's main tower. Vexatha was still alive, his skin now pale and cracked like old glass. He looked up at the human general with eyes that had lost all their fire. "Kill me," he whispered. "I am a warrior. Grant me a warrior's death." Tony looked down at the broken alien who had started this conflict. "No, you're going to live. You're going to stand trial for murdering our diplomats. You're going to confess to the galaxy that you were wrong about humans. And you're going to spend the rest of your life watching your people rebuild their civilization under human guidance." Vexathara's skin flushed with the last of his rage. "We will never accept human rule. We will resist. We will fight until every Zephyrian is dead." Tony smiled sadly. "High Counselor, you still don't understand. Look around you. Your people aren't fighting. They're surrendering. They're begging us for compassion. They're asking us to forgive them for following you into this conflict." He gestured to the streets where Zephyrian civilians were emerging from their hiding places, their hands raised in surrender. Human soldiers were distributing food and medical supplies, treating wounded aliens, helping rebuild damaged buildings. "You see, High Counselor, we learned something important from Dr. Grant and Captain Morrison. We learned that showing compassion to the innocent isn't weakness. It's strength. Real strength. The kind of strength that builds civilizations instead of destroying them." Tony turned to his aide. "Take him to the detention center. Make sure he gets medical treatment. Make sure he's fed and housed properly. Make sure he lives long enough to see what his people become under human protection." As Vexathera was led away, Tony looked up at the sky where human ships moved in precise formations, already beginning the work of rebuilding what the conflict had destroyed. The Zephyrian collective was finished as an independent power. Their worlds now flew human flags. Their people now lived under human law, but they were alive. Their cities would be rebuilt. Their children would grow up in peace. They would learn to be grateful for the compassion that Vexathara had rejected, the compassion that Lisa Grant had died trying to give them. The conflict was over. The galaxy would remember this lesson for 1,000 years. You don't kill human peacemakers and expect to survive the consequences. 1 year after the last Zaharian ship surrendered, Admiral Rick Hayes stood in the memorial garden built where the Harmony's edge had been destroyed. The garden was made of crystal and light, designed by Zephyrian artists working under human supervision. At its center stood a simple stone monument with 2 names carved in every language known to the galaxy, Lisa Grant and Jake Morrison. Rick placed a white flower at the base of the monument, the same kind of flower that Lisa had worn in her hair during the peace mission. Around him, the space that had once been empty now buzzed with activity. Human ships moved in orderly patterns, protecting trade routes that connected dozens of worlds. Alien vessels flew alongside them, their crews working together in the new galactic order that had emerged from the ashes of conflict. "Admiral," said Captain Steve Johnson, approaching through the garden paths, "President Sullivan is ready for you." Rick nodded and followed Steve to the communication center. The largest room in the space station had been converted into a meeting hall where representatives from 37 different species were gathering for the first Galactic Peace Conference. Each species had sent their best diplomats, their wisest leaders, their most skilled negotiators. But they weren't here to negotiate with each other. They were here to negotiate with humanity. President Kate Sullivan stood at the center of the Great Hall, looking out at the assembled alien representatives. Some had skin like metal, Others had scales or fur or features that defied human understanding. But they all had one thing in common. They were afraid. "Welcome," President Sullivan said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I know why you're here. You've seen what happened to the Zephyrian Collective. You've watched 12 star systems fall under human control in less than 3 months. You've heard the stories about what we do to species that kill our diplomats." She walked slowly around the circle of alien delegates. "Some of you are here because you want to make peace with us. Some of you are here because you're afraid we'll come for you next. Some of you are here because you want to understand how a species you'd never heard of became the most powerful force in the galaxy in less than a year." A delegate from the Corvani Republic, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, raised one hand. "President Sullivan, we wish to formally apologize for our initial support of the Zaharian Collective. We were deceived about the nature of your species." Sullivan stopped in front of the Corvani. "You weren't deceived. You made a choice. When the Zephyrians told you that humans were weak, you believed them because it was convenient. When they offered you a share of human territory after they destroyed us, you agreed because you thought we couldn't fight back." The Corvani's skin darkened with shame. "We were wrong." "Yes, you were." Sullivan's voice was not angry, just matter of fact. "But here's the thing about humans. We believe in second chances. We believe that people can learn from their mistakes. We believe that yesterday's adversaries can become tomorrow's companions." She turned to address the entire assembly. Dr. Lisa Grant believed that. She died believing that aliens and humans could work together, could build something better than conflict and conquest. Captain Jake Morrison believed that. He died trying to prevent the very conflict that his death made inevitable. President Sullivan activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked human territory, which now included the former Zephyrian Collective. Green zones showed species that had already signed peace treaties with humanity. Yellow zones marked neutral species. Only a few small areas remained unmarked. "This is what the galaxy looks like today," Sullivan said. 40 billion former Zephyrians now live under human protection. Their worlds are being rebuilt. Their children are learning human languages alongside their own. Their scientists are working with our scientists to develop new technologies that will benefit everyone. She touched a control, and the display zoomed in on a former Zephyrian world. The images showed human and alien construction crews working side by side, rebuilding cities that had been damaged in the conflict. Alien children played with human children in schools that taught both species' histories. "This is what human conquest looks like," Sullivan continued. "We don't destroy civilizations, we improve them. We don't enslave species, we guide them. We don't eliminate differences, we learn from them." An ambassador from the Helix Federation, a creature that looked like a walking crystal formation, spoke up. "But you destroyed their military completely. You eliminated their government. You took away their independence." Sullivan nodded. "Yes, we did. They used their military to murder our peace envoys. They used their government to justify genocide against peaceful species. They used their independence to spread conflict and hatred across the galaxy." She looked directly at the Crystal Ambassador. "When someone uses their freedom to kill innocents, they lose the right to that freedom." Dr. Helen Adams, now serving as humanity's first Galactic administrator, stepped forward. "But loss of independence doesn't mean loss of dignity. The former Zephyrian worlds have representation in our colonial government. Their voices are heard in decisions that affect them. Their cultures are preserved and protected." She activated another display showing statistics from the occupied worlds. "Crime is down 60%. Disease has been virtually eliminated. Educational opportunities have increased by 300%. Standard of living has improved across all demographic groups. Most importantly," Dr. Adams continued, "there have been no terrorist attacks, no resistance movements, no calls for revolution. The Zephyrian people are grateful for human rule because we've given them something their own government never did: peace, prosperity, and hope for the future." A small, furry delegate from the Epsilon Collective raised a tiny hand. "What do you want from the rest of us? What are your terms for peace?" President Sullivan smiled for the first time since the conference began. "The same thing we wanted a year ago when we sent the Harmony's Edge on its peace mission: friendship, trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense against common threats." The chance to learn from each other and build a better galaxy together. The furry delegate looked confused. That's all? No tribute? No territorial concessions? No submission to human authority? That's all, Sullivan confirmed. We're not conquerors by choice. We're conquerors by necessity. The Zephyrians forced us to become what we never wanted to be. But now that we've demonstrated what human military power can accomplish, maybe we can go back to what we always preferred to be. Explorers, scientists, teachers, companions. She gestured to Admiral Hayes, who had been standing quietly near the memorial display. Admiral Hayes will be establishing human embassy stations in every system that signs a peace treaty with us. These stations will provide medical aid, technological assistance, and protection from hostile forces. They will also serve as cultural centers where humans and aliens can learn about each other. Rick stepped forward. But understand this clearly. These embassy stations will also be military bases. The same ships that bring doctors and teachers can bring soldiers and weapons. We hope that won't be necessary. We pray that no species will be foolish enough to repeat the Zephyrians' mistake. A delegate from the far edge of the galaxy, a species that looked like living shadow, spoke in a voice like whispers. What if we refuse your friendship? What if we choose to remain isolated? President Sullivan considered the question carefully. Then you remain isolated. We won't force friendship on anyone. We won't invade species that leave us alone. We won't impose our values on cultures that don't threaten others. She paused. But understand that isolation means exactly that. No trade with human worlds, no access to human technology, no protection from other threats. And if you change your mind later, if you decide you want what we're offering after all, you'll have to prove that your intentions are genuine. The shadow beings seem to consider this. And if hostile forces threaten isolated worlds, if species like the Zephyrians rise again, then you deal with them yourselves, Rick answered. Human protection is for human companions. Human justice is for human adversaries. If you choose neither friendship nor hostility, then you choose to face the galaxy alone. The conference continued for 3 more days. When it ended, 34 of the 37 species had signed formal peace treaties with humanity. 2 chose isolation. 1, a militaristic empire from the Galactic Rim, chose neither friendship nor isolation. They simply left without comment. 6 months later, that empire attacked a peaceful species that had signed a human alliance treaty. The human response was swift and decisive. The empire's capital world surrendered after a battle that lasted exactly 43 minutes. President Sullivan stood once again in the memorial garden, this time accompanied by the former High Counselor Vexthera. The Zephyrian leader was older now, his skin pale and lined with age. He had served his sentence for his crimes and was now working as a cultural advisor, helping other species understand how to coexist peacefully with humanity. "Do you regret it?" Sullivan asked him. "Starting the conflict that changed everything?" Vexatha looked at the monument to Lisa Grant and Jake Morrison. "I regret killing your companions. I regret not understanding what they were offering us. I regret choosing conflict over peace." He paused, his voice barely a whisper. "But most of all, I regret not seeing what they saw. That true strength comes from choosing compassion when you have the power to choose violence. Your species understood that. Mine didn't. And now we live with the consequences." Sullivan placed her hand on the old alien's shoulder. "Your people are rebuilding. Your children are learning. Your civilization will survive, just in a different form. That's more than you gave Lisa and Jake?" Vexatha nodded slowly. "Yes. And that is why humanity deserves to lead the galaxy. Not because you're the strongest, but because even in your anger, even in your vengeance, you remembered how to show mercy." He looked up at the stars. "The galaxy is safer now, not because humans conquered us, but because you taught us what we should have known all along, that the truly powerful don't need to prove their strength by destroying the weak." President Sullivan looked out at the busy space lanes, at the ships of a dozen different species working together, trading together, living together. "Lisa and Jake would be proud," she said softly. "This is what they wanted, what they died for. A galaxy where different species could meet in peace, where friendship was possible, where kindness wasn't considered weakness." Vexatha bowed his head. Then their deaths were not in vain. They created this peace even though they didn't live to see it. Their sacrifice changed everything. As the sun set on the memorial garden, casting long shadows across the monument, Sullivan stood in silence. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had shown both its strength and its compassion, and somewhere among the stars, two spirits rested, knowing that their final act of kindness had planted the seeds for a better universe. The Harmony's edge was gone, but its mission had succeeded, not in the way anyone had expected, but in a way that would echo through history forever. Humans had proven that they could be both the kindest companions and the most formidable adversaries, and the galaxy would never forget either lesson.